3, 2, 1.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Metro Board Member Tracy Haddon-Lowe, and I represent the District of Columbia on the Metro Board of Directors. I'm also the board's second vice chair. It's got second right in the title. I'm joined by my colleagues, Director Valerie Santos and alternate director Spring Worth. Also with me this evening is Metro's Chief Financial Officer, Yetunde Olumide, and Jennifer Ellison, Metro's Board Corporate Secretary. I would like to recognize that we have several ANC commissioners here with us tonight. I'm very appreciative of your uncompensated but very important service as the most hyperlocal elected officials in the District of Columbia. I know we have Frederica Kramer and Travis Swanson with us. Thank you so much. To any other ANCs who may have walked on in, please stand up so you can be recognized.
James Nash from 34G.
Thank you so much.
Rhonda Hamilton from 16.
Thank you, ma'am.
Travis Swanson from 17.
Hey, thank you so much for coming out tonight. So welcome to this public hearing on Metro's proposed FY2025 budget and capital improvement plan. This hearing is convened by the Metro Board of Directors to gather public comments on two dockets. Docket B24-01, Metro's proposed FY2025 capital improvement program and federal FY2025 grant applications, and Docket B24-02, Metro's proposed FY25 operating budget and associated fare and service proposals. Notice of this hearing was made by publication in the Washington Post, and ads were placed in the El Tiempo Latino, the Korean Times, Washington China News, Washington Afro-American, Href, and Dai Ne, as well as through social media in English and Spanish. Signs were placed in all rail stations, on buses, and Metro Access vehicles, and ambassadors provided information at select high ridership bus stops. Notice was also made online and sent to all jurisdictions within the Metro Compact area and to area libraries. We're looking forward to hearing from everyone who's joined us this evening to provide testimony. Before we take testimony, we're going to have a brief presentation from Ms. Olumide that provides details on both the initial proposal for Metro's FY2025 budget and a revised proposal that depends on additional funding from the jurisdictions Metro serves. With that, I'm going to hand it over to the CFO.
Thank you, Ms. Lowe. So good evening, board members and members of the public. My name is Yetunde Olumide. I'm the Chief Financial Officer and Executive Vice President here at the Washington Metro. This evening, I'll present the original FY25 proposed operating budget and 6-year capital improvement program, and our revised proposal released last month that takes into account preliminary financial commitments from Metro's jurisdictional partners. First, I'd like to cover the context of Metro's FY25 budget. Since last summer, we have shared that Metro must confront an unprecedented $750 million budget deficit in the coming fiscal year, beginning in July 1 of 2024. Ridership and passenger revenue, while improving, have not fully recovered and are further at risk of severe service cuts are needed to close the deficit. Operating costs are directly related to service levels, and a deficit this large without additional funding requires looking at service cuts and fare increases. On the capital side, the proposed 25 to 36-year CIP planned investment totals about $11 billion, and FY25 capital budget investment is about $2.4 billion, with investments focused on reducing the backlog of unmet capital programs and projects. Metro is confronting an unprecedented $750 million budget deficit in the coming fiscal year beginning in July. We're committed to being open and transparent about the impact on service and the region if we can't close the budget gap. Metro is legally required to present a balanced budget each year, and the fiscal year 25 budget proposals reflect our current funding situation. The proposed budget eliminates the $750 million deficit through drastic service cuts, administrative cuts, fare increases, transferring money from our preventive maintenance program, and cost savings initiatives. We acknowledge the proposed budget would be painful to our customers and employees and would severely limit services we provide to the community. Just as ridership is accelerating, we have to reduce rail and bus service below what is needed for the number of people currently riding Metro. Starting at $750 million gap, Metro's internal efficiencies generate savings of about $124 million, and the PM transfer increase would further reduce the cap by $193 million. The service cuts and deep administrative reductions result in a $500 million decrease in operating expenses, while the revenue loss from the major service cuts, including non-passenger revenue, impacts total about $95 million. The fare and parking increase would generate $29 million more in revenue for a net savings of $433 million, and thus closing the FY25 deficit. Without a sustainable funding source, the FY25 proposed budget presents an unrecognizable Metro due to the unprecedented service cuts necessary to close the operating deficit through internal levers. To help close Metro's FY25 operating deficit, the proposed budget would reduce service roughly by a third and increase fares by 20%. Specific changes to Metrobus include eliminating Metrobus service on 67 of 135 lines and reducing service on 41 of the 135 lines. On Metro Rail, the system would reduce service on all lines, 10 p.m. system closures, 10 stations closed, and red and silver line turnbacks. On Metro Access, the service area would be reduced based on the reduction to fixed route network. Metro would also increase fares and parking by 20%. Now to the revised proposed budget. On February 8th, 2024, Metro's general manager released a revised budget based on preliminary financial commitments from Metro's jurisdictional partners. The revised 25 proposed budget adopts a regional approach that requires collaboration and assistance from all stakeholders, including Metro, our riders, and Metro's funding jurisdictions. What can Metro control? Aggressive expense management and oversight by Metro will keep FY25 gross expenses at FY24 levels, a 0% growth in expenses. This would be achieved through salary and wage freezes worth $38 million, $50 million in recurring administrative savings and efficiencies, reducing non-personnel expenditures by about $11 million, targeted service cuts for about $20 million in savings, and these cost reductions result in about $119 million savings. To fully close our FY25 operating deficit, the revised 25 proposed budget includes $104 million in preventive maintenance transfers. While this lever can provide relief on the operating budget, it decreases capital funding for infrastructure projects and will accelerate Metro's looming capital deficit. It should be noted that while the FY25 preventive maintenance transfer amount is lower than the proposed budget, the FY26 preventive maintenance transfer increased. The net effect of the 2 fiscal years is $27 million more in preventive maintenance being transferred in the 6-year capital program. Now, as part of its forward-looking plan, Metro will optimize service through targeted rail service cuts and a redesigned bus network focused on delivering the most useful network with available resources. On Metro Bus in FY25, instead of severe service cuts on bus, FY24 service levels will be maintained. On Metro Rail, Metro would continue frequent all-day service while more efficiently scheduling peak service periods to align with ridership levels. There would also be more 6-car trains where shorter trains provide sufficient capacity. Reduce service levels on holidays with low ridership as well. On Metro Access, Metro would preserve the current service area, and fares are proposed to increase by 12.5% instead of the original 20% proposed in December. As of February 2nd, 2024, Metro's funding jurisdictions have communicated $480 million in additional funding in FY25 above the 3% cap. Maryland's budget includes $150 million. Budget conferees have been appointed by both the House and Senate to resolve the differences in their respective budgets in Virginia. And the DC leadership sent a letter indicating their commitment to $200 million in additional subsidies. Metro is grateful that the region is working together to address the FY25 deficit and communicated these additional funding amounts. Although Metro's proposed 25 capital budget is fully funded, Metro future funding constraints will shrink the capital program, leaving the state of good repair and modernization needs unmet, as well as reduced reliability. Generally consistent with what was presented in December, revised amounts reflect updated preventive maintenance transfer assumptions. Metro's total capital investment from FY25 through 30 would still be the $11 billion, and 10-year plan would be about $24 billion. While there is still work to be done, we look forward to hearing from the public on the budget process. We hope this revised budget proposal is responsive to the feedback and requests of our partners and stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that presentation. Before we call witnesses, I'd like to explain the testimony process for this evening. We're going to begin with speakers who registered in advance. Please come to the podium, which has a microphone on it, when I call you to speak. If you need a microphone brought to you, please raise your hand when I call your name, and someone will come to you. When I call up speakers, I'll also note the next 2 people in the queue so you can be prepared to come forward when it's your turn. If you haven't yet registered and want to speak, please see staff outside at the registration table. It's not enough just to be in this room. If you've registered in advance, please make sure you checked in at the registration table to let us know that you are physically here. You can watch the hearing live online at www.wamata.com/budget, and the video will be archived on the Metro Forward YouTube channel. That's a nice way of saying that we're recording you right now. For the public record to accurately reflect who is providing testimony, I'd ask that you please state your name and any organization you represent before beginning your testimony. Since this hearing is being recorded and will be available forever on YouTube, please do not provide any personal information like where you live, your phone number, or your email in your testimony. Elected public officials will be allowed 5 minutes, and everyone else will be allowed 3 minutes each. You are going to hear a beep when you have 15 seconds remaining. That's your cue to sum up any remaining testimony. It doesn't mean you have to stop right away. You still have 15 seconds. Extra time will be given for translation if needed. We do ask that you stay within your time limit because look around you. We want to make sure everyone who wants to speak has a chance to be heard. I also want to note that each speaker is only able to speak once at each hearing. Finally, I want to take a moment to recognize that this is where we listen to you, even though I'm talking a lot right now. This is your opportunity to comment on the proposals, and we are here to listen. That means we will not be able to answer questions during your testimony. Metro staff is available outside to answer questions. Detailed information is also available online at wamata.com/budget. Your comments will become part of the public record that will be reviewed by the Metro Board of Directors. Changes to the options presented here tonight may be proposed in response to testimony received and subsequent staff analysis. And now it's time to call the first witness. As a reminder, please tell us your name and any organization you represent before you start speaking. I'd first like to call Frederica Kramer.
Thank you. Oops. Thank you. Good evening. I am Frederica Kramer, Advisory Neighborhood Commissioner for ANC 6007 and Chair of ANC 6D in Southwest Washington. I'm testifying today for 6007 on the potential loss of the 74 bus to residents and commuters in my district. My single-member district runs south from M Street Southwest to and through Buzzard Point to the Anacostia River, and the 74 provides the only bus service to that community. Buzzard Point is a peninsula squeezed between South Capitol Street, the Potomac River, and the Anacostia at its southern end. It was mostly forgotten industrial zone with a few government buildings until Audi Field was built. It's now home to the DC soccer team, DC United, 1,500 new residents, another 1,100 almost online, and another 2,000 designed, approved, and awaiting construction. That's nearly 4,000 units. That's just the units, not the multiples of people who live or who already live or will live in them, and will be at least 6,000 when redevelopment in Buzzard Point is done. It may be even more if planned office spaces change to residentials, developers rethink their post-pandemic landscape. Just north of this massive redevelopment is Old Southwest, with 3 public housing complexes, many low and moderate income households who rely on the 74 to get to shopping, work, and other parts of the city. There are also 3 new buildings, 1 massive and 2 with 100% affordable housing. Just north of Potomac Avenue, 2 others are about to break ground. There may be an implicit assumption that the new residents who will make Buzzard Point their home won't need the bus. They'll have cars, they'll use Metro or their bicycles. Not so. Buzzard Point is about a mile from both the Navy Yard and the waterfront metro stations. The bus is the way one with mobility issues, whether personal or strollers or others, can get close to transit and home both ways. Garage space is extremely limited and expensive, and street parking is typically metered 24 hours. The new residents are not all moneyed, which is exactly the kind of iconic demographic diversity that our Southwest Small Area Plan has triumphed, now part of the DC Comp Plan, and it aims to preserve, and that we in our ANC have fought to preserve. And multiple means of public transportation is the glue that holds all that together. Residents are not the only ones who use the 74 in Buzzard Point. Over 300 construction crew typically work on a building daily. There are 3 going up now. Others come daily to DC Central Kitchen, which has moved its entire headquarters, catering operation, and training center to Buzzard Point. There are 3 new restaurants in River Point, 2121 2nd Street. that bring workers, first construction, then staff, and then patrons. Eagle Academy Public Charter School is in the Watermark at 1900 Half Street, and of course, thousands attend games at Audi Field. My focus today is on the residents and daily entrance into Buzzard Point. I've not focused on the other fully half of my constituents in Carrollsburg, two complexes, River Park, the Vallow, St. James, Fort McNair, who may ride the 74 to points north and east. Those closer to the metro, but with frailty or compromised mobility, find the metro problematic, and the bus and metro drivers a willing and necessary assist to get on and off without risk or injury. WMATA may claim that the 74 has met with so many challenges from ongoing construction or soccer games at Audi that periodically create route changes and challenges to the drivers. I get emails daily about missed buses and have been in an ongoing meeting with WMATA, one of the developers and construction teams, to craft a viable solution to the interruptions. I thank WMATA's Bryant McClary and the team for their diligence. We think we have a solution. Their persistence in trying to find a strategy for continued service of the 74 is testament itself to their understanding of the critical need for that line. I understand Councilman Allen has gotten a commitment from WMATA to continue service in this coming budget. I also understand the 74 has been and continues to be a target for elimination with each budget cycle. We've done our part. The developers have done their part. Your staff has done its part to facilitate continued service and to help WMATA understand the critical importance of the line. Metro rail and bicycles are no substitute for surface bus service. To repeat, the 74 is the only public transportation to serve this peninsula. It's time WMATA could do its part to understand its role and commit to making this service a reality. Thank you. I thought I rushed through it best I could.
You did great. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
And I just realized I forgot to give the next people a heads up. So I'm now going to call Travis Swanson. And then on deck, we have Mike Golosh and Jake Goodman. Oh, sorry. Oh, Lordy. Okay, on deck, we have James Nash and Rhonda Hamilton. Sorry, elected officials get to go first.
Hi, good evening, esteemed members of the WMATA Board. My name is Travis Swanson, ANC Commissioner for Single Member District 7B03 in the Randall Highlands community east of the Anacostia River. I also am the chair of ANC 7B's Committee on Transportation. I'm here today to express my strong opposition to the proposed FY2025 service cuts in ANC 7B. Please note that my testimony reflects my perspectives as the Commissioner for 7B03 as well as the chairperson for the ANC 7B Committee on Transportation and does not necessarily reflect that of the Commission as a whole. I'd like to draw your attention to several critical concerns related to the proposed service changes that will have a profound impact on the daily lives of ANC 7B residents. Ending bus routes 32 and 36 at L'Enfant Plaza rather than the Foggy Bottom Metro Station or Potomac Park would require riders to transfer to the Metro Rail Station, significantly increasing both their commute times and cost. This additional expense places an undue burden on residents of ANC 7B, forcing many of them to make multiple transfers to reach their final destination. The proposed elimination of Route M6 with suggested alternatives as routes 32 and 36 leaves a substantial number of residents without service, particularly concerning the stretch of Pennsylvania Avenue between Southern Avenue and Branch Avenue, where the M6 route is the sole option for reaching the Potomac Avenue Metro Station. This leaves a noticeable void in the service area for residents who live east of Branch Avenue off the Pennsylvania Avenue corridor. And this is because they are suggesting the 32 routes and 36 as an alternative, but the 32 turns onto 25th Street, the 36 turns on Branch Avenue, leaving the M6 the only one continuing east on Pennsylvania Avenue. Ending Route V4 at the Potomac Avenue Metro Station instead of continuing onto the Navy Yard Station will impact residents of 7B who rely on this route to access essential services such as jobs, entertainment, and medical care in the Navy Yard community. Additional routes in ANC 7B slated for elimination are routes A31, A32, D51, S35, V4, W3, and W8, all scheduled for elimination, directly serving ANC 7B and affecting our residents' mobility and access to essential services. I also have concerns about the fare model shift. The proposed service changes seem to signal a shift towards a system where buses would primarily transport individuals to metro rail stations versus to their final destination. This approach raises concerns for me, especially given the fare model used in Washington, D.C., where trains cost more than buses, versus a model like New York City uses, where buses and trains are the same price and it's a free transfer. Ward 7 and 8 currently have the lowest median household incomes in the district, as well as the lowest car ownership rates in the district, and they will be disproportionately affected by these changes. Next, I'd like to address historical assurance discrepancies. Previous assurances, such as those made when routes 30N, 30S, 34, and 39 were cut, have not proven accurate. ANC 7B has experienced decreased service, longer wait times, disrupted commutes, contradicting WMATA's earlier promises. WMATA assured us that the impact of cutting Route 39 would be minimal, emphasizing that Route M6 would seamlessly fill the gaps on Pennsylvania Avenue east of Branch Avenue. However, it's disconcerting to observe Route M6 now under consideration for elimination with no viable alternatives. Similarly, when routes 30N and 30S were cut, we were told that accessing Georgetown, Glover Park, and Friendship Heights would remain easy through a smooth transfer alternative by taking routes 32 or 36 downtown and transferring to routes 31 or 33. However, the current proposal lacks overlap between routes 32, 36, and routes 31, 33, leaving our community without the promised connectivity. Furthermore, the assurance that frequencies on routes 32 and 36 would be increased to 10-minute intervals after Route 34 was cut seems to hold true only where these two routes overlap, which is almost exclusively west of the Anacostia River. There is exactly one stop east of the Anacostia River that is served by both before those routes split. Over the years, Ward 7 has been consistently assured that proposed changes would have minimal impact. However, the stark reality contradicts these assurances. Instead of experiencing minimal disruption, our community has witnessed decreased services, resulting in prolonged wait times and extended commutes. Adding to the distress, alternative services implemented in response to past cuts are now at risk of elimination. In conclusion, I strongly urge the WMATA board to reconsider and outright reject these proposed service cuts. The residents of Ward 7 and 8, already grappling with socio-economical challenges, should not shoulder the burdens of these aggressive changes. It is imperative to prioritize affordable and efficient transportation options that cater to the unique needs of our community. I appreciate your attention to this matter. I do have a written copy of my testimony today for your records, and welcome any questions. Thank you.
That was super detailed. I'm definitely going to need to see that in writing. Okay, next up is James Nash, and on deck, Rhonda Hamilton and Mike Golash.
Okay, thank you for this chance to talk to you. My name is James Nash. I am ANC Commissioner for ANC 34G, Single Member District 03, and the chair of the Emerging Transportation Committee in our ANC. I am here representing my views only and not those of the commission as a whole, although I think they would probably all agree with me, okay. My first point is to object to the elimination of the M4 bus. We lost the E6 recently, and we're still reeling from that. That happened during the pandemic, and many people are still upset about that. The M4 would create a bus desert in the Burnaby Woods area particularly. That is a place with no bus service and probably 2 miles from the nearest metro station. And I know that equity is a factor in determining what routes are to be cut, and that may hurt people in the Chevy Chase area because we are perhaps seen as overprivileged. However, I think equity should also have a geographical component, and when there is no public transportation at all for miles, that is inequitable. And I want to remind you all that many people living in our area are senior citizens or disabled and are unable to drive. Even whether they can afford it or not isn't necessarily so crucial. My second point is to protest, or rather object to the proposed reduction in service on the Connecticut Avenue line, the L2. As many other people have said, this would require people to transfer from the bus to the metro at Woodley Park. And there are two problems with this. Number one, the added expense and time and trouble. If you are elderly, getting off the bus and on to the metro, especially at night, is hazardous and problematic. Number two, Metro, as I'm sure you're aware, turns west after Van Ness. And so if you take the Metro, you're not going to end up on Connecticut Avenue anymore. You're going to end up at Wisconsin Avenue. And that's a long way from Barnaby Woods. It's a long way from where I live. So, the bus goes up Connecticut. The Metro Rail does not. And so that is a dumb thing to do, in my opinion. It's going to hurt people who live in Chevy Chase. And that's it. Thank you once again for giving me the chance to tell you what things are like in Chevy Chase.
Next up, we have Rhonda Hamilton, and on deck, Mike Golash and Jake Goodman.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Rhonda Hamilton. I represent 6008, which include residents along Delaware Avenue. My single-member districts extend all the way down to part of Buzzard Point, which I share with Commissioner Kramer. She did a good job of outlining the concerns for the loss of the bus. I understand that we're going to have the bus extended because of our council members' efforts for another year. I was a part of the original team of community leaders and members who worked with WMATA on introducing the 74 bus to the community, which was many years ago. It was designed to be a neighborhood serving bus, and we need that bus to be kept fully operational. We have grown tremendously since we've introduced their route. We have two major stadiums. Most of the residents that I represent live in either public or subsidized housings. They're very dependent on the bus. They need the bus to get to and from school. A lot of our school children depend on the bus as their school bus. That's how they get to school. A lot of our seniors are aging in place. They've given up their cards. So they need these bus routes to get to and from their medical appointments, and it also continues to keep their sense of independency because they can get to in and out of the community. The bus has played a vital role in our community. It has enabled us to be able to get also to and from the metro in different places. And one of my colleagues had mentioned that you all design a lot of the bus routes to get to and from the metro. However, they do need to be destinations. People want to get home. I grew up in a city, and that's how we got around. We got around going on a bus. I caught the metro very later on in my life, but I was very dependent on the bus, and a lot of my constituents are. And so my plea for you is to allow us to have this bus beyond just 1 year. Every year since this bus was introduced, we're always fighting to keep it. We have lost more than we have gained with all of the new growth and development. We have not received the necessary services and support to allow our community to continue to grow and thrive. And transportation, as you all know, is critical to that. In my opinion, we should be sitting down with you talking about ways that we can extend our bus service and to make it better and more improved to service the community, not be pleading and begging and asking for it to be extended every single year. We receive very consistent service with the 74 bus and also the 52 and the P6 bus. We need those buses. But at the same time, it's very difficult for us when we come and we're faced with losing that, because we lose a lot with that. People lose their ability to be able to get to and from the critical places that they need to get to. And so my hopes and a request to you is to please extend this service. Keep the Delaware Avenue loop. One of the things in the proposal is to eliminate that Delaware Avenue loop. That's where a lot of our seniors are. That's where a lot of our children are. If you eliminate that route, you take that bus away from them and they have to walk 2 and 3 blocks over. And that's a concern. Safety is critical. A lot of times the bus routes are unfortunately, they may not be well lit along that route, but if you have a bus that's close to where you are and you can get over and get off and dash into your home or just walk across the street, that's a benefit. So I'm just hoping that you will continue to keep our buses for our workers. Our workers need to get to, we're a destination, so a lot of visitors come in the community and there's no place to park. But most importantly, we need to just be reassured that we can continue to get in and out of our community, because none of us want to be locked into our community. And a lot of us physically cannot walk 10 and 15 minutes to get to a metro. And then sometimes when you get to a metro, having to access it, to go downstairs. Imagine people in walkers, in wheelchairs. They're having to try to get to a metro or to be dependent on their loved ones to take them somewhere because they don't have a bus that services them. So this, to me, is a critical issue, and we just ask that you continue to work with us and to continue to have our bus, the 74, again, the 52 and the P6, but most critically, this bus is needed because it's the only bus that services this end of our community. So please continue to help us to keep it not only this year, but years to come, for the hope and the sake of the community, because we need it.
Thank you. Next up is Mike Golash. On deck, Jake Goodman and Mike Litt.
Good evening. My name is Mike Golash. I'm a former president of Local 689. I'm speaking here tonight on behalf of Local 689. Local 689 represents 50,000 trans workers and retirees across the D.C. metro area, including many dedicated and hardworking WMATA employees. As we all know, our members and our region faced unprecedented challenges over the last few years. Nonetheless, transit workers have faithfully stayed on the job and kept our region afloat, even though the worst pandemic in over a century occurred. WMATA provides an essential service to the region. Its services promote development, help businesses prosper, reduce congestion and pollution, and transport hundreds of thousands of workers to their jobs every day. We often characterize the payments by the local governments for this service as a subsidy. This is wrong. The payments are made for a service which adds value to the region, to provide a safe and reliable service which the region demands and Metro is striving to provides costs money. What is the most efficient way to provide additional revenue for the authority? One proposal is to raise fares. This is wrong. It will lead to fewer riders and place a disproportionate burden on low-wage workers, particularly those that are not eligible for SNAP benefits. A better approach is first to fight for a federal operating payment. The federal government encourages workers to ride the system. The federal government should be billed for the difference in fares paid by the government workers and the true cost of the service that we provide. Second, there needs to be a tax on development and businesses that benefit from the services that Metro provides. Dr. Green at Howard, who will speak later, the Northern Virginia Transportation Committee, and others have studied the value creation over the years, and it amounts to billions of dollars. The local governments need to pass legislation to capture some of this value on a regular basis. Let me be clear. Finding solutions to Metro's long-standing and systematic funding problems is essential. However, the solution cannot be and must not fall on the backs of working-class people. It cannot fall on our members, who are deemed frontline heroes. Additionally, it cannot fall on the working Washingtonians who need reliable service to pick up their kids, to get to work, and to navigate the city, this great city. When Metro was created in 1973, the vision of the future was one of a unified transit system. That vision broke down almost immediately with the creation of Ride-On. In the 1990s, with the Regional Mobility Panel, more steps were taken to balkanize the bus system. as this was created many inefficient and duplicate services. As we move forward with the idea of better transit systems, we need to return to the original version of one unified system meeting the needs of all residents in the DMV. We live in one of the most affluent regions in the country. There is no excuses for not improving our transit system. Thank you. Us older people, a little extra time. We don't speak as quick as you younger people, Ms. Lowe.
I'm sorry, I got to be fair to everybody. Okay, next up, Jake Goodman. On deck, Mike Litt and Bryson Closel.
One second, sorry. What you see in this bag tonight is a bunch of brochures that we have been passing out for the past few weeks regarding the situation that is happening here tonight. The situation that has been threatening this area for quite some time with drastic $750 million budget cuts. My name is Jake Goodman, and I'm with the Action Committee on Transit. Part of what you're about to hear right now is part of our testimony, but then a part of that is also my own information. So, I'd like to remind everyone that we talk a lot about fare evasion in the metro system, but in reality, the biggest fare evaders, and that not many of them are here tonight, are the representatives of the Maryland, DC, and Virginia government. They need to pay their fair share in order to keep this system running, because we all love metro, and we want to see it thrive. What is already being offered is simply not enough. There needs to be pressure to have more of the budget be covered by them. I encourage everyone to scan the QR code. If you don't have this already, please see me after, because I encourage everyone to talk to their Virginia delegates or Virginia senators, talk to their Maryland senators, talk to their DC council members about what is going on here, and get them to take action, legislative action. Also, because reductions, at the end of the day, they are the only ones who could fix this. Reductions in service will only make things worse here. We cannot, I repeat, we cannot be closing at 10 p.m. every night. Closing stations, 10 stations, that is unacceptable. We should not even be closing one. And we should also be having more frequencies. Lower frequencies is unacceptable, and it will lead to low ridership. We need to raise parking fares to utilize to encourage people to utilize local buses more. We should have more local buses in operation, instead of cutting lines, we need to have the buses running. Because what we're seeing here is just unacceptable. And the only people who can change it are in the Wilson Building, in Annapolis, and Richmond. And we need to do everything in our power to change it. So I encourage you, if you don't have this already, please talk to me after this meeting. And and also I am happy to provide the testimony that I have provided here in an email if anyone needs it. Thank you, everyone. And also, vote for me for state delegate in 2026 in Maryland.
Thank you, sir. Okay, next up, Mike Litt. On deck, Bryson Closel and Rodney Green.
Hi, my name is Mike Litt. I am a car-free Metro rider and the chair of the Sierra Club DC Chapter Sustainable Transportation Committee. I'll walk through the main points of our more detailed comments, starting with Metro's budget shortfall. Metro is critical to having a climate-smart transportation system here in the DMV. Metro must be fully funded as the priority it should be. The proposed budget would instead gut our transit system. We appreciate the revisions you have made in light of commitments so far from DC, Maryland, and Virginia. However, there would still be some service cuts and hundreds of millions of dollars in annual transfers from the operations budget to the capital budget, which would cut into critical infrastructure projects to ensure Metro's safety, reliability, and sustainability. So we urge regional leaders to shift funding away from highway expansion to fully fund the remaining gap in Metro's budget. Sierra Club is part of the Fund Metro Coalition, which has also called for solving the lack of adequate long-term dedicated funding once and for all by the end of this year. I'll note one line item. We ask that Metro reconsider replacing cloth seats with vinyl seats, as vinyl has been reported to release elevated levels of vinyl chloride, a known carcinogen. On to service improvements. We applaud Metro and its staff for tremendous service improvements in the past year that have helped increase ridership more than 30%. To increase it even more, we support expanded weekend Metro Rail hours and also encourage Metro to work towards system-wide high-frequency service defined by Move DC as at least every 5 minutes for rail and at least every 10 minutes for buses. On to safety. We are concerned that customer assaults in Q1 FY24 more than doubled compared to the same period in FY23, and that bus customer injuries spiked in September, double the normal occurrence in a month. The final budget should note all projects that are expected to help meet different safety targets. On to electrification. We applaud Metro's progress in the past year toward transitioning to a zero-emission bus fleet, which it should not delay. We appreciate that Metro has committed to continuing modernization of the Bladensburg and Cinderbed bus garages and opening the Northern Bus Garage as Metro's first all-electric bus facility. As a Sierra Club report shows, there would be a savings of at least $350 million over a 15-year time period if 50% of Metro's fleet were electric. And finally, we'd like to know the timeline for the release of Metro's Sustainability Action Plan and Decarbonization Strategy and the progress that's been made toward sustainability targets in Metro's Strategic Transformation Plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Brian Closel. On deck, Rodney Green and Thomas Mangrum. Bryson?
Members of the board, I stand before you today deeply concerned about the proposed budget adjustments for fiscal year 2025. The $750 million deficit facing WMATA demands decisive action, but the current strategy, marked by severe service cuts, fare hikes, and the reallocation of capital funds, threatens the fabric of the transit system and the community it serves. Specifically, the proposed service reductions impacting Foggy Bottom, a vital hub for students, healthcare workers, and government employees, are particularly alarming. The area, serving as a link to George Washington University, hospitals, and numerous federal agencies, relies heavily on consistent and efficient public transit. The reduction of routes here are not only hinders the daily commute of thousands, but also affects the broader economic and social fabric of the community. The proposed 25% fare increase and 20% parking rate hike, while financially justifiable on paper, neglect the broader implications on accessibility and affordability of public transit. The introduction of MetroLift in 2023 was commendable, and it was a commendable step towards supporting low-income residents. Yet the significant fare increases will inevitably erode the progress, making it harder for many to access essential services and opportunities. I urge the board to consider alternative solutions that balance fiscal responsibility with the preservation of essential services. This includes additional revenue sources, enhancing efficiency without compromising service quality, and advocating for increased support from federal, state, and local governments. The choices we make today will define the path of public transit in our region. Let us choose a path that upholds our commitments to providing safe, reliable, and accessible transportation for all. Thank you.
Okay, next up, Rodney Green. On deck, Thomas Mangrum and Judith Farley.
Good evening. I'm Rodney Green. I'm a professor of economics at Howard University, and I'm happy to be here to talk to you about Metro. I wrote a book about Metro, about the development possibilities for its subway stations back 30 years ago, and I've also conducted a study more recently about the need for a windfall value-added tax on land near Metro rail stations in order to finance Metro. You know, $750 million, you know, that's just a little bit more than Donald Trump has to pay, right? But, you know, we have a lot of Donald Trumps right here in Washington, D.C. We got billionaires in this town, and they can pay. Now, I don't know if we're going to be able to make that happen, but I think we should bear in mind that this is a serious problem facing the entire city. I have a copy of the study if anybody would like to see it. There you go.
I'd love to.
Okay, well, I can send it around too, yeah. And it's just a small pilot project we did some time ago. Now, the question is who should pay for this $750 million as well as for the dedicated funding of Metro? Well, I think that the people who benefit the most from it, and those are the rich people, those are the developers, those are the sports team owners that makes millions and millions of dollars practically every week from Metro's access availability. But the reality is we live in a vastly unequal society. We have a society where the burden of financing most government activity comes down on the least able to pay, the working class, especially Black and Latin workers, and it also the disabled and those who are facing all kinds of other problems with their mobility. Metro workers are part of that, are a key part of that working class, as well as the workers who ride the buses every day to get to work and or take the subway. And these are the very people who've been hit the hardest by the recent economic crisis, the 9% inflation that we had recently, and so on. Yet in this capitalist society that we live in, it's the rich that hold the political power. And they won't give up a dime without a fight. Again, take a look at Donald Trump. What this means is that it's going to be a fight. And that means that you, as the board, as representing the board, should take that fight to the various jurisdictions to insist that they figure out a way to make the rich pay. If you don't do that, then I think the other side of it is that the working class will respond itself. In fact, there should be more resistance to any kinds of attacks on them. We see resistance is rising. Strikes in Loudoun County, Fairfax County, the Circulator, and Metro Access are a mere taste of things to come as a new 689 contract comes up this summer. Don't attack 689. Don't attack the workers by abolishing routes. And the main thing is, if you sow the wind,
That's your time. I'm sorry.
you will reap the whirlwind this summer. I had a great ending there. Okay.
Next up, Thomas Mangrum. On deck, Judith Farley and Sandy Newzeal.
Okay.
Smile, everybody. Cheese.
Okay. I'm Thomas Mangrum. I sit as chair of Project Action, and I serve on the Ramada Advisory Board. I'm here to talk about the buses and Metro Access. With Metro Access, for the services that y'all have going out into Maryland, and the buses stop running early out there for the buses that are going to be still running, don't assume that people with physical disabilities just work during the day. So you got some people that got prescription trips that work at night, get off from work late at night when the buses done stop running. Because now with the budget, when the buses stop running, that's when Metro Access will stop running. So if they stop running in some places at 6 or 7 o'clock, that's when Metro Access stop running. So you need to let people know that have prescription trips now that they might need to talk to their boss so they could adjust their working time. Because when you have a disability, it's hard to hold on to a job or what have you. Because like the least little thing could take a job away. The weather, snow, people get fired because they can't get to work in the snow. So, and then with Metro and then with the bus route that you is going to cut, make sure you have something covering them signs, as you still want to have the Metro signs there, although the bus is not going to be running there, because you don't want people waiting outside for a bus that's not going to show up. You see, so make sure you have something like that set up. And also, for the subway stations, any changes y'all going to do, make sure the security knows about that, because especially for those of us that have used mobility equipment, like myself, I just experienced a station, La Plante, where security didn't know where I could go to get out or what have you. So sent me to a side where you can't use it, and I had the gate for wheelchairs, but it was going nowhere or what have you. So security, Metro security didn't even know. And then you got signage leading people to the wrong area, what have you. So make sure y'all straighten out that also, because when you got people with mobility equipment, our chairs don't run forever. People can't walk forever. So they need to know what is the quickest way to get out. So please let people know about these things. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Judith Farley on deck, Sandy Nuziel, and Tino Calabia.
My name is Judith Farley. I live in Southwest and belong to the Waterfront Village, a neighborhood organization which supports residents age 60 and older who live in Southwest and Navy Yard. I am testifying tonight to stress that Metrobus routes 74, P6, and 52 are lifelines for our Southwesters, many of whom have no cars. These routes must stay in operation. Statistical analysis and anecdotal evidence demonstrate the dangers of isolation to this aging demographic. Our residents, especially those in Old Southwest and Buzzard Point, use the 74 regularly for medical and dental appointments, the MLK Library, Smithsonian Museums, National Archives, Convention Center, restaurants along 7th Street Northwest and Chinatown, to shepherd grandchildren to and from school, and even to WMATA hearings. The 74 stops at our village office, Arena Stage, Nats Park, Safeway, St. Matthew Lutheran, St. Augustine Episcopal, Westminster Presbyterian, Christ United Methodist, St. Vincent de Paul Catholic churches, and the Buddhist Meditation Center. So you can see, even God wants you to keep these buses running. P6 is the only bus that goes along M Street to 11th Street Southeast, to Harris Teeter, Trader Joe's, Eastern Market. It goes to the mall, Botanic Gardens, the main library, the E Street Theater, Ford's Theater, Macy's, Bloomingdale Farmers Market, and connects us with all 4 quadrants in the city. The 52 starts at L'Enfant Plaza, goes along 14th Street and to the wharf with its many workers. If we lose the circulator, we will be without public transportation on M Street except for rail, which is unfriendly to people with mobility issues. Southwest residents use buses instead of Waterfront Metro because the buses easily accommodate wheelchairs, walkers, baby strollers. Bus drivers wait until older people are seated before driving off. They secure wheelchairs and lower ramps for people who need that help. Metro Rail cannot provide these services. When station elevators are out of order, using the escalators with walkers and strollers can be dangerous. Platforms and cars are often crowded and difficult. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the hearing on the public hearing for WMATA's FY25 capital and operating budget. Before we start the meeting again, I hope I speak on behalf of everyone when I express my gratitude to the Metro Transit Police Department for their extremely speedy, capable, and reassuring response to the little window incident that we just had here. Thank you so much for keeping this community safe. Thank you. And with that said, we are going to get back to our testimony here. Thank you for everyone for your patience as we work through the line here. I believe we were at Sandy Nuzeel, and we're going to restart your time. So if we could take this from the top.
Okay, thank you for this second opportunity to speak tonight. I am Sandra Nuzeel. Although I am on the Metro Accessibility Advisory Committee, I speak tonight as an individual person who is legally blind, who relies on Metro Access, Metro Rail, and Metro Bus. I'm asking WMATA, within the ultimate constraints of the 2025 budget, to maintain as much geographic coverage and hours of service for Metro Bus, Metro Rail as possible, so that the geographic area and hours of service of Metro Access are maintained to the maximum extent possible. I rely on Metro to go to locations in Maryland, DC, and Virginia, where I work part-time and volunteer as an advocate for people who have low vision and blindness. Like I said, I am legally blind, and Metro Access is important to me. Some destinations are new to me, and some I go to more than once. I rely on Metro Access to get to new and unfamiliar locations and to go after dark. Once I am familiar with a location, I will gladly use fixed route Metro Rail service, which gives me more flexibility and saves Metro a lot of money. If WMATA is forced to make rail and bus service slightly less frequent, or make trains shorter, or increase fares slightly, that could be more palatable if WMATA continues fixed route services in as wide a geographic area 7 days a week and as many hours of the day as is fiscally possible, and thus maintain full Metro and Metro Access services that all riders depend on to be fully engaged citizens who can go to and from medical appointments and work and contribute to this vibrant DMV community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on deck, we have Tino Calabia. And in the batting cage, we have Sam Allison Jensen and Liana Steinberg Casper.
Good evening. When I prepared my testimony, I thought maybe Mr. Smedberg and also Randy Clark would be here. So my prepared testimony addresses them, so I'll pretend like they're here. One of the things I wanted to do was to thank Randy Clark for bringing us into the 21st century by deciding to construct open gangways trains. They're safer and they're more commodious. He also did something about the fare evasion problem, and I thank him for that. He came in and there were new fare evasion fare gates, but they were obsolete, and they didn't do the work. So he had to go and re-examine and then make a prototype, and then he has set up new, better fare gate things. My second point is regarding funding. Today's Washington Post headlined a front-page article, DC officials unveil $400 million plan to fix DC's ailing downtown. That's a quote from the first page of today's Post. Minus headlines and captions, the text consists of 1,429 words. Only 18 allude to WMATA, but to me, the most notable are the 18 words, quote, dedicated funding for the bus system and Metrail in the face of the transit system's budget shortfall. I second that. So thank you, Mayor Bowser. First of all, for the $200 million you've promised to help lower the huge estimated shortfall that WMATA faces, and also for mentioning dedicated funding. But wait, unfortunately, WMATA Finance Committee's February 8th document was followed up 10 days later by a Richmond Times-Dispatch article saying, quote, the Virginia State House budget includes $149.5 million for the Metro transit system, something Youngkin's, that is Governor Youngkin's budget, and the Senate versions do not include. Several days later, the Washington Post added that State Senator Finance and Appropriations Commissioner Lucas blocked additional, well, my time is up, but you get the point. We need,
You have 15 seconds.
oh, I'm sorry. Has blocked the money for the money needed to help make up for our shortfall. So we've got to do something about that, or you can put at half-mast the Virginia flag that's over there.
Thank you for your comments. And thank you, everyone, for being good about time. Now we'll hear from the next speaker, Sam Allison Jensen. On deck, Liana Steinberg-Casper and Linda Green.
Hi, my name is Sam Allison Jensen. I want to start off by saying thank you to all of our board members and transit executives who have worked endlessly around the clock to improve my Metro over the last year and who continue to fight for funding. It means a lot to me. Metro means a lot to me. I live right here in our nation's capital, and I rely on Metro Rail more than anything else to carry me throughout all three regions, Maryland, Washington, D.C., and Virginia, whether it's for leisure or work. Sometimes I'm required to travel in and out of each region to participate in various work projects that can end as late as 10 p.m. when Metro would be scheduled to close. Although I heavily rely on Metro Rail, I'm starting to get more rider experience on our Metro bus system. If we face the dreaded consequences of the budget deficit, neither would be as reliable for me as they are today. I understand that we have to take necessary actions to help generate revenue, such as a fare increase, which I personally have no issue with, since I'm willing to do whatever to support and contribute to keeping my Metro afloat. And correct me if I'm wrong on this topic, but I also read in the budget docket that Metro will be shifting capital funds to cover operating expenses, meaning that could possibly postpone maintenance projects, which sounds concerning to me. I think I can speak for everyone when I say we deserve a safe and reliable system. Metro has undergone a complete 360 under CEO and General Manager Randy Clark's leadership last year, to the point where standing on the bus stop and platform feels like a new era, a breath of fresh air, if you will. If we face the consequences of this budget deficit beginning this summer, it won't feel that way with the significant decrease in frequent and reliable service that we were once promised and given. In fact, it will feel depressing and dreadful, and I'm not looking forward to experiencing these changes as a customer. No one is. Not only is Metro the transit agency that moves me throughout all three regions, but the public transit nerd in me considers and values it as my safe space. Again, I'm asking you to continue to fight like hell alongside us, your customers, for our funding. And if there are any elected officials or politicians that are currently present in this room or watching this online, please hear our voices loud and clearly. I'm begging and pleading for you to come together to help close the financial gap and fund our Metro. The motto is your Metro, or in this case, my Metro, the way forward, not Metro, the way backwards. Thank you.
There's a lot of good singers tonight, y'all. Okay, next up, Liana Steinberg-Casper. On deck, Linda Green and Rico Dancy.
Hello. I really thought the most stressful part of today would be public speaking. So my name is Leanna Steinberg-Casper, and I am a volunteer with the DC Hub of Sunrise Movement. And today I am here to urge you to fully fund the Metro and avoid increasing fares and making any cuts or reductions in service. Even with the partial funding that would protect against major bus line elimination and Metro stop shutdowns, measures of the current proposed plan would still lead to less frequent, more expensive, more crowded, and potentially less safe trains and buses. This is unacceptable to residents of the DMV who rely on this transit to get to work, to school, and to other essential services. If these reductions are enacted, those who cannot afford any other mode of transportation will be left in the dust, and those who can afford to switch to a high-polluting vehicle will, exacerbating both DC's already major traffic problems and the urgent threat of climate change. 40% of carbon pollution in DC already comes from transportation, mostly from this traffic. Our city cannot reach our climate goals and justly transition away from fossil fuels without making public transit a priority. As someone who just moved to the DMV a few months ago from the San Diego suburbs, one of my favorite parts of living and working here has been the easy access to clean, safe, affordable, and reliable public transit. I was so disappointed to discover that the plan this authority has put forth for fiscal '25 would remove much of that access, making trains and buses more dangerous, less affordable, and less reliable for the people who depend on them. I have spent most of my life in a city that doesn't invest nearly enough in public transit and have seen people suffer because of it. I sincerely hope I do not have to see that city government's mistakes replicated here. Now more than ever is the time to fully fund public transit rather than divesting from it to ensure an equitable and sustainable future for all residents of the DMV. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, next up, Linda Green. On deck, Rico Dancy and Bill Orleans.
Good evening. I'm a physician, and somewhere along the line, I realized that public health was actually a lot more important to people's health than my personal private practice at Prince George's Hospital. But I would like to say that public transportation is one of the major social determinants of health that public health people talk about, and maintaining and expanding public transportation in the DMV requires the funding that many people have spoken about tonight. But we have to figure out how to do that, and making fares more expensive is not the solution, and cutting routes is not the solution. Many people rely on all of this in Prince George's County to get their medical care, as well as for the many other things people have spoken about. Developers benefit from public transit and should be contributing much more to the services. Housing, sports and entertainment venues, and businesses are examples of this benefit. Of course, the federal government could contribute much more as well, and the young man that wants to run for office and wants all the jurisdictions to pay more is exactly right. I would like to say that at some point there was an expansion of bus service in Prince George's County, and it was really great. And I was talking to someone outside about the T18, which is a great route. And I learned, unfortunately, that it's going to probably stop at midnight, which would impact a lot of the community of working people in Mount Rainier, Hyattsville, Bladensburg, and so forth. So I'm really concerned that any of these cutbacks in services will make people's jobs more difficult and their health worse. Researchers have increasingly documented the health benefits of public transportation. Studies, as the young woman just said, show clear linkages between lower levels of air pollution, improved safety, and higher physical activity levels. Compared to private vehicles, public transportation produces 95% less carbon monoxide, 92% fewer volatile organic compounds, and 45% less carbon dioxide per passenger. And from the point of view of safety, public transportation is roughly 1/25 that associated with private automobiles when it comes to pedestrian safety and so forth. I did want to point out that one of the things I've done is talk to the Metro Access workers in Landover last year. And as some of you may realize, COVID still is around. And the experience of that group of workers kind of echoes what Mike Golash said. These guys worked really hard throughout the pandemic to transport people for medical care, and they often had too many people in the van so that the risk of infection was greater, and the transportation times were much longer. This needs to be looked at very carefully, and Metro access really needs to be expanded. Funding is critical for both the riders and the operators in that system. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Dr. Green. Next up, Rico Dancy on deck, Bill Orleans and Denise Dubose.
Good
afternoon. Sorry.
Good afternoon. For people who's on a walker, who's on a walker, go to doctor's appointment, who go to church, who go to the grocery store, who depends on Metro access. If you increase the fare for people who get Social Security, SSI, fixed income, just to make it put in me, especially people who's on dialysis. Okay. My wife is on dialysis. Okay. So I am her caretaker every day. For me working full-time job and me taking her a full-time job. If they cut or decrease Metro access, for people who with a disability don't have cars, what do we tell them? Unless Metro is going to take the people to all their appointments in their personal cars, then we want to tell them, send them a clear message. Because this is the reason why I am putting my hat in for Congress, because if we keep on electing the same people, we get the same results. And we want, please listen to us. We are people. People with a disability live this every single day. I want someone to pay attention to us. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next up, Bill Orleans, Denise Dubose, and David Burke are on deck.
Good evening, all. Last night, not very well, but I was listening to the testimony in Silver Spring as I left the building to go elsewhere for another meeting. And I did not hear, nor have I heard tonight, nor as I expect will it be said tomorrow night and or Thursday, that we're happy to have any one of the several bus routes we use every week eliminated. We're happy, if we're an access rider, to lose access to access, because the bus routes that have been eliminated will remove us beyond 3/4 of a mile from fixed route service. So we'll be out of luck, and we're happy that the headways between trains will be extended, and they will close earlier at night. And we're just happy. And also, we're happy to pay more for our service. I haven't heard anybody say that. If anybody else say that, next time I see you, Ms. Lowe, I hope you'll tell me that somebody said that. I certainly agree with others that the $480 million promised, I understand the check is not even in the mail as yet, by the jurisdictions, is insufficient. Now, I have my own ideas as to who should pay for an expanded metro, but I'll leave that aside for the moment. Certainly, the jurisdictions see to it that they cough up more than $480 million. I don't know that anybody that is on the receiving end of the $246 million in debt service next year, or the nearly $2 billion in debt service over the course of the next several years, is really interested, really cares that much about the quality of transit service in the WMATA's transit zone. Some of them may live here, but they're not reliant on transit service. They can get by fine and dandy if all those bus routes are eliminated, if the trains are less frequent, and if people can't ride access because they're beyond 3/4 of a mile. I certainly think that Governor Moore, my state, Maryland, and all the other executives and the legislative so-and-sos should respond to this need, which apparently is real. I've conceded to the board previously that this year's the sky is falling budget scenario may be more true than it has been when the sky was falling in previous years. But Governor Moore should offer more to WMATA, and we should be relieved of this concern. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next up, Denise Dubose. Let's get a mic to the back. While the mic's on the way, on deck, David Burke and Madeline Lieberman.
Hello. I am a Metro Access rider. I don't really ride the the Metro bus or the Metro rail, but I'm a very avid Metro Access rider. And I feel as though if you all cut out our services, we're already incapacitated to a degree already. And if you do that, that's going to incapacitate us anymore. And that's not fair to us. We have a regular life. Like I don't work, but I'm doing something every day. I go to appointments, I go to therapy, I go to the gym, I go to the pool, I have grandchildren, I go places with them. So if you do that, we already have our medical conditions that we're dealing with. So if you incapacitate us that way, that will make our life even more difficult. We want to live a regular life just like everybody else, and we deserve that. And I understand you have to have budget cuts, but that should not be part of it. You need to find a different way, some other kind of conclusion to come to as to not capacitate us anymore. And you just went down on the fares to $4. Now you're saying you're going to go back up. Most of us are on Social Security disability, or we have very limited budgets. So if you do that, that will incapacitate us in a second way. So how many times are we supposed to get these cutbacks? That makes a major difference in our lives, and I don't think that should be happening. You have to start taking us into consideration, your elders, your people with disabilities, all of that, because you never know, someday, one day, any of y'all, God willing, could be in our situation. And what would you want somebody to do for you? Would you want somebody to incapacitate you even more than you already are, or help further your situation in a more accommodative situation? We should not have to be forced to not live our lives, to go to our appointments, to do the things that we need to do just because the government, Metro, whoever says they don't have the money. Find it, do what you got to do, cut back some other way, do something different, but we should not have to suffer because of that. It's not fair. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next up, David Burke. Is David Burke here? Okay, we'll go on to Madeline Lieberman or Chris Williams. He left. What about Jake Goodman? Okay, so it is, okay, here we go. Okay, Philippa Miziel. And then on deck, Patricia Bishop and Jermaine Franks. We got you on the Express.
I see. Hi, good evening, everyone. I just wanted to say, my name is Philippa Mazel, first of all. I'm a resident of the District of Columbia. I'm speaking on behalf of myself and the low vision community. I'm also a member of the Metro AAC committee. I just want to say I am opposed to any type of service cut, any type of service area cut, particularly as it impacts on Metro Access users. Some of the if you cut the service area for bus and rail, where other people need the bus and rail just as well as we do, but if you cut the service area, then you've reduced the service area for Metro Access. Now, I would like each of you, just for a moment, close your eyes. I promise I won't hurt you. Just close your eyes for one moment. Imagine that that's the extent of your vision, and that Metro Access has been picking you up from your home and taking you somewhere and bringing you back. But now, all of a sudden, and this is what I consider the most inane and insane portion of this recommendation, if the service area is cut, suddenly If you're outside of the service area, you're going to have to transport yourself to a pickup point, then wait for something to pick you up from there, take you where you're going, bring you back to the pickup point, and get you back home. Now, that is just ridiculous. It would be difficult, it would be time-consuming, it would be expensive. And I urge you to just not cut the service area for people. And like I said, if you have to cut service, don't cut the service area. Carve it out and keep it as it is, currently serving people. Other thing is, also wanted you to imagine that you're sitting in the chair, and that chair is the extent of your mobility. That if someone doesn't get you in that chair and take you somewhere, you're just stuck in that chair. And that's the case for a lot of people. You need to be able to transport. People need to go to their life-saving dialysis, cancer treatments, medical appointments, et cetera. I, for one, use Metro Access. I use bus and rail. I'm a very active volunteer in my community. I've served as a foster grandparent, which would not have been possible if it hadn't been for Metro Access taking me to the training and then to the locations. I'm on the Senior Medicare Patrol Program, which helps teach seniors how to recognize fraud and abuse on their Medicare billing statements. I volunteer with my church. I volunteer with my sorority, which is very active in the community. So I would not be able to do most of that, if any of that, if the Metro Access services were cut. You don't please, okay, in my last 10 seconds, I'm just going to say, Metro cops rock, and since I can't be charged as being sexist, you are the best-looking board of directors I've ever seen.
Thank you for those comments. Next up, Patricia Bishop. And while we're getting Ms. Bishop set up, on deck, Jermaine Franks and Janice Samuel.
Hello, my name is Patricia Bishop. I'm gonna give you my AK.
Can we get this mic checked? I'm so sorry, ma'am. Okay, let's start the time over.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Patricia Bishop. I am going to also give you my AKA. It's good trouble. I represent it. So does the people who have spoke before me. I will appreciate if each and every one of y'all in Metro get in good trouble right along with us. Don't make these changes to harm anyone as far as Metro access, but definitely subways. And the 74 bus on Delaware and anywhere else in the southwest area where it is definitely needed, because we have disabled, young and old. We have seniors that are walkers, canes, and wheelchairs. How can we expect for them or any of us to go down to 4th Street in the scorching hot weather or the freezing weather to get that bus that is normally to circulate throughout southwest area the way it has been? Please continue that bus line. It is beneficiary to us because we need that to get to the stores, grocery stores, even to get to the 79 to go up George Avenue to Walmart. To get to doctor's appointments, dialysis, as it was spoken. Get our kids back and forth to school in the morning and back home in the evening. I'm sorry, y'all, but I had to stop because it's really frustrating. This is not my first time being here about this 74 being continued. They wanted to take the bus stop away the last time I was here. I fought and I came here and spoke up for that bus stop to remain at Delaware, because that is a location where there are several homes and apartment buildings right there that we need to have that bus stop right there in order to get safely to our front door. I also uses the 74. I'd rather not push my shopper cart back down to Safeway and back up just to get my groceries home. I'd rather be able to get on that 74 bus to do that. which would be more convenient for me and others that live in the neighborhood. People's walkers has broken trying to push groceries down the street when they need that bus right there to be even more safer for them so that they can get back and forth to where they live. And once again, I appreciate y'all listening to me. Support the good trouble that we all have came here to speak of to y'all and join us. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We are listening to all these comments. Next up, Jermaine Franks. While Jermaine's coming up, Janice Samuel and Matthew Exline are on deck.
How's it going, everyone? I'm about to say, that tow truck incident was definitely a scare. Definitely thank the first responders for that and their response. I wanted to talk about, was it the V4 line? And it's not, it stops running at, I believe, was it 12 o'clock, I believe? I would like it for it to be, was it on the 24-hour schedule? Because you got the X2, the W4, and a couple other lines on the 24-hour schedule. That would definitely help out with that. And another thing, I didn't know the, was it the, like my Aunt Pat was saying, she was talking about the 47 being stopped. Please don't cut that line, because I didn't even know that was being cut from the regular schedules and stuff like that. The buses still need to be, because I live in Ward 8, they still need to be cleaned and stuff like that, because I be getting on some of the buses and they just be filthy and stuff like that, and not properly, like, all the way cleaned. That would for surely help as well. I got like 22 seconds left. Yeah, I just want to appreciate, like, to have, like, this opportunity to speak to the board members, and that's it. Yeah, have a great night.
Thank you for coming out here tonight. Next up, Janice Samuel.
Good evening. My name is Janice Samuel. I'm a member of the National Federation of the Blind of the District of Columbia and the National Federation of the Blind of Maryland. I am not here in an official capacity. I will be delivering my personal testimony. So, good evening. I was told to cut out my introduction and get straight to the point, so here goes. As a member of the visually impaired community, I strongly advocate against any reduction in these vital paratransit services, which are crucial when ensuring equal access to transportation for individuals with disabilities. For many of us who are blind or visually impaired, Metro Access paratransit services are not just a convenience, but a lifeline that enables us to maintain our independence, access employment opportunities, education, healthcare services, and participate fully in all aspects of community life. These services provide us with the freedom to travel independently, accessing essential services, visiting friends and family, and engaging in social and recreational activities. I could not have come here this evening without Metro Access. Cutting Metro Access paratransit services would have a disproportionate impact on the blind and visually impaired community, exacerbating the need or the existing barriers that we have in transportation, It would further isolate us, limit our ability to contribute and participate in the workforce, hinder our contributions to the local economy, and hinder our participation in community activities, thereby perpetuating inequality and discrimination. The $750 million budget deficit should not be balanced on the backs of the most vulnerable members of our society. Instead, I urge you to have the audacity to implement alternative solutions that prioritize the needs of individuals with disabilities and uphold our fundamental rights to accessible transportation within the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. I implore you to consider the long-term implications of these cuts and the detrimental effects they would have on the lives of those who rely on Metro Access paratransit services. I urge you to work towards securing sustainable funding for these essential services and to prioritize the preservation of accessibility for all members of our community. This is the most powerful city in the planet. Please, there is no reason why this should be cut.
Thank you for your comments. Next up, Matthew Exline, and on deck, Aurelia Glenn and Maven Farrell.
Clearly, neither real nor imagined fears will dampen our support for Metro or our enthusiasm for our exercise of our rights to speak out this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, I could speak about how Metro is the engine that powers the economy of this region. I don't think I have to convince you of that. I could talk about how Metro provides mobility for all different members of our community, but I think that's already been covered. I will instead talk about a couple of things that haven't been covered, a few general and a few specific. Generally, I'd like to address first the topic of fare evasion, which has been alluded to but not talked about enough. It's tempting, I think, to think about how much you're going to charge for fare in terms of what you need, but that's not really how the customers who ride your service actually look at it. Instead, think of your system as a store. The problem is that the service that you sell in your store is very easy for people to steal, and people are stealing it left and right. And if you don't have enough money coming in, then you need to figure out how to stop people from stealing from you so much without criminalizing people, creating more violent confrontations, and so forth. The new fare gates are a great step in the right direction. Those need to be in every single station across the whole network. You also need to find some way to keep people from stealing the fares on the buses too. I'm not sure how to do that, but that might be something you want to look at. I'd also like to talk specifically about fare cuts, or the service cuts on the Blue and Silver line. The proposed plan is going to result in a significant cut in service. as it is currently with the Blue and Silver Line and Prince George's County, with those two running concurrently, you have a situation where you can basically walk in and a train's going to come along within 5 minutes. That's a really high quality of service. And it's a real benefit to people like me who commute every day, to anyone in the region. With the Silver Line under this plan stopping and not going on into Prince George's County, and the Blue Line running less frequently, you're cutting frequency from every 3 to 5 minutes to every 15 minutes, which is a significant decrease in service, has an impact on people's ability to commute. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next up, Aurelia Glenn. On deck, Maven Farrell and Niels Pemberton.
Good evening. Underlying all this premature talk of service cuts, because that should not be trotted out first due to the purpose and nature of public transportation, is revenue. People have already talked about dedicated funding sources, which is needed, as well as contributions from local jurisdictions. But WMATA's contribution to this also needs to be addressed. As a user, I don't understand WMATA's seeming refusal to publicize its monthly passes as a consistent revenue stream to from its passengers. It's convenient, it saves money, yet it is not and has not been consistently promoted. I can look on my Wi-Fi in the morning and see an ad for a young lady advertising WMATA merch. How much money is that bringing in the metro? But nothing promoting consistent monthly revenue from passengers, your riders, who knows how the system works and works well, and we want it to continue to do so. The other problem, which I think that surrounding service, is that bus service specifically, is that the GPS trackers don't always work, because that works in conjunction with the bus ETA. And if they're not working, you don't know if a bus is coming, which renders kind of bus ETA useless. And you need to know that a bus is actually coming in order for the system to really work and to be useful. Also, I've had actually better luck with the DC Transit app in knowing when a bus is coming, better than with bus ETA. There have been a number of times bus ETA did not report a bus coming that the DC Transit app did, which is incredible and not helpful at all. I do want to specifically talk about the D14 bus line, which is scheduled to be cut. That doesn't make any sense since it's a framework route, one which is, according to your bus transformation project, is a bus line that is a backbone of bus service, and that allowing riders to travel along major corridor streets and access the region. Why is it even on the table for being cut? It accesses, seniors. It goes to a Social Security office. It goes to a medical center, which has a veterans office, Andrews, a Giant, Aldi's, Latino supermarkets, to schools. This is, Z14 should not be cut. It goes to the Suitland Federal Center. I don't understand, according to your own guidelines, it should not be cut. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. Next up, Maven Farrell. On deck, Niels Pemberton and Paul Semmelfort.
Hello, WMATA staff and my fellow concerned advocates. My name is Maven Farrell, and I'm a 7th grader at LSU Middle School. I'm here to address the issue that we are all acutely aware of. The proposal that WMATA is showcasing will not only affect me, but many others in my school community. Specifically, the buses D31, D32, D33, D34, the M4, and the W45 are proposed to be cut. These 6 bus lines are but a few compared to the other lines that could also be cut. So many other kids at my school, including myself, use these buses to get to and from school every day. Removing these lines would not only affect the amount of kids coming to school on time or even at all, but it will also affect the safety of the children. On a weekly basis, all the D30 buses in the M4 are full to capacity both to and from school. Students rely on these buses as a mode of transportation just as they would a textbook for curriculum or a pencil or pen for an expression of thought. Removing these lines would disrupt students' educations, futures, and the opportunities that school has to offer. DCPS is already struggling with tardies and absences, and by eliminating these bus routes, the problem will worsen. Safety is another element that would be affected. As a height-challenged middle school girl, it is already hard enough to just walk alone without feeling unsafe. Just imagine how all the other kids would be affected by this and how they feel. The metro buses and trains struggle with violence and crime. Already struggle. So putting a bunch of students on them does not seem like the right solution. I acknowledge that other DCBS schools don't have dedicated bus routes for their students to take, though there are regular routes that students use to get to other public schools and charter schools that would also be affected by this proposal. Shouldn't we be focusing on improving their bus service? Why are we making students commute even harder? So consider this. I have to wake up at 5:30 a.m., get ready, eat breakfast, and make my lunch and leave. But then I have to take 3 buses, the 54 to the E4 to the M4. Oh wait, but I can't because the M4 is also being cut. So then I have to walk the rest of the mile to get to school. And when I finally get there, most likely late, I'm exhausted. Then on my way home, I have to do the same thing. And this would happen to so many other kids or even adults that rely on these lines. This would affect my safety, like getting home after dark, my education, like not having enough time to do my homework, and my rest, like having no sleep time. Education, safety, and convenience are all impacted by the elimination of the D30 buses, the W45, and the M4, which would have an everlasting effect on students' families all around. Thank you.
Okay, we're not supposed to pick favorite comments, but I went to Alice Deal Junior High, and I thought there were some real words of wisdom there. Thank you, Maven.
Hello, my name is Neil Pemberton. Good evening. Since 2009, I've been working for the Washington Nationals on game days. Many of these games are in the evenings, and they usually end between 10 and 10:30 p.m. I need to have the Metro available to take me home after 10:30 p.m. If Metro stops at 10 p.m., I will be forced to give up my job. My needs are not negotiable. I'm sorry. This is how important Metro late night service is to me. I am completely dependent on transit, and I've been a pro-transit advocate in the 1990s. I'm now looking for another job because I do not trust Virginia's state government to do the right thing.
Thank you for your comments.
I'll lose my job.
Thank you for your comments. Next up, Paul Semmelfort. Is Paul still here? Or what about Miss Denise Rush? I see you here. Can we take a mic to Miss Denise? And Virgilia Collins is going to be next, okay?
Good evening. My name is Denise Rush. I'm Vice Chair of the AAC Committee and Vice Chair of Metro Access. I've been riding the service for 24 years. It has been my lifeline. It helped me pay my mortgage. It helped me retire from a law firm. And I've had great experiences. We must have full funding and dedicated funding. I don't know how you're going to figure it out, but one of the suggestions, every business owner that Metro Access, Metro Rail, Metro Bus takes someone to, they should be paying something toward the money they're making, because Metro is making them money by getting us there. And if you're going to cut the service for handicapped people who don't have the option to get in their car or get on the bus or Metro, well, I shouldn't have gotten on the floor. I should have, you're shooting me. You're killing us, our independence. So I should have stayed up and maybe let bullet would have hit me and or whatever, and just lay down and die, because there are going to be a lot of people who are going to feel like they have been shot and they've lost their life. So I hope you don't do that. But Metro Access came for me when the earthquake. They came for me when the deep snow. They are my lifeline, and they should be commended. No, they're not perfect, but your husband's not perfect. Your daughter's not perfect. Nothing's perfect, but something is better than nothing. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next up, Virgilia Collins.
Okay, you need to stop this thing. Okay, hi, my name is Virgilia Collins. I'm here because I was told that there are going to be some bus service and Metro Rail cuts or Metro Rail closings. And I live in between 3 Metro Rails, Suitland, Naylor Road, and Southern Avenue. And I live on 5 bus lines, 4 of them which are Metro bus lines. And I've been living where I live now for almost 29 years. When I first moved there were no bus service or even Metro. I used to work at night. I had to walk from D.C. into Maryland. I live near Iverson Mall, and that's a long walk from Naylor Road and Southern Avenue, Southern Avenue, Branch Avenue, Willow Road, and Southern Avenue. I even walk from Eastover Shopping Center. And I also lived in Hyattsville, Maryland, one time before they brought the Metro train, the Green Line Metro. And the buses on weekends, Eastover and Hyattsville, they stopped running around 8:30, 9 o'clock. I had to walk from the Metro, from the Brooklyn Metro to going towards PG Plaza, and that took almost an hour. And also, I used to have to walk. One time they talked about cutting bus fare. I remember when I couldn't even afford bus fare, I had to walk to work. And that took an hour or half hour, depending on where I work. And other things like I went to the meeting in Silver Spring, and if it hadn't been for Metro Access, I would have had to catch 2 buses and 2 trains to get there. So that's, it didn't take me long to get here today because I live right on the Green Line. The Metro's right down the street, but there's some places that are too far out, where you can't walk to. And plus if the weather is bad, like if it's raining or snowing, and plus back then, a long time ago, I was in good health, so I was able to walk, but right now, my health is deteriorating, so I'm not able to, sometimes it's hard for me to stand up and walk. So, that's the reason why I, want you to keep the, buses and the trains running, even if you have to cut back on, wait time. And the fare, I don't have a problem with you going up 20 cents, because fare was about 25 cents when I first started riding the bus, and that's been since 73. So divide that in 50 years, if you go up on the fare, unless they never went up on the fare every year, but let's say if they did, it would only be 5 cents every year, so I don't have a problem with that. But I am concerned about the buses, rail, Metro Access also. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I am being told that there's no one else signed up to speak. If there's anyone else present that wants to speak and hasn't already done so, identify yourself. Come to the podium. Ma'am, come on down. This is not The Price is Right. That sounded more fun than it was. We are going to get everybody, but ladies first, please.
Good evening, everyone. So my name is Victoria. So I live in Capitol Heights and Addison Road, the middle, so from Maryland. So I'm housekeeping for the Line Hotel. I'm working here from DC. I'm using 96 every day. So I would like please not cut it because we need it. Especially in Saturday and Sunday, the metro train is open 7 and I'm start to work 6, so I'm use the bus. Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank
Señorita,
you for your comments.
señorita, su apellido. Señora, su apellido.
Oh, Marroquín Vázquez. Thank you.
Sir?
Okay. No, I'm good. Good. I got a sermon for you today. My name is William Covington. I belong to the National Federation of the Blind and the Blind Community, Low Vision, etc. My appeal is simply this. If the mayor can come up with $500 million for a baseball team and a hockey team to stay in this Washington, D.C., I don't know if you guys have access to her, but I would simply appeal to the psychological, and that is to say, when things are cut, anxiety rises and depression sets in. It's a challenge enough to be visually impaired and have to live with the lateness of Metro Access, bus, and the rail. But without it, like water from the sky, the flower dies. So I would not want to see a lot of people go into depression. And that's simply my appeal. Think about the mindset, the isolation, and the types of things and anxieties people will go through when they can't get out. Remember the pandemic? That's all I got to say. Thanks.
Any other takers? I think that was our last speaker. This hearing is now concluded. You are welcome to submit additional written testimony. It must be received by 5 p.m. on Tuesday, March 5th. Testimony can be submitted online at wamata.com/budget. Online, you have the option to complete a survey, write free-form comments, and upload a letter, petition, or other document. You can also mail testimony to Office of the Secretary, WMATA, SECT 2E, P.O. Box 44390, Washington, D.C. 20026-4390. Again, all testimony must be received by 5 p.m. on March 5th. We encourage everyone to submit comments online if possible. You also have the option to speak at the other hearings we're holding on the budget this week. We already talked about this. Tomorrow, Wednesday, February 28th, at the Arlington County Government Center, 2100 Clarendon Boulevard, Suite 307. It's right above the Courthouse Metro Station on the Orange and Silver Line. And finally, we're having a virtual hearing this Thursday, February 29th at noon. Thursday's hearing will only accept comments via phone or video. Information on how to register for the remaining hearings can be found at wamata.com/budget. If you're planning to attend or speak at a subsequent hearing, I'll note that individuals who haven't provided testimony at prior hearings on these dockets will be given priority to speak. Thank you again for joining us and for taking the time to provide testimony. Have a good evening and stay safe.